So all this talk about the PLP and all that really is neither here nor there. There's just political.
Damien has been. I'm not Damien. Business. Volume. Good morning. Yes, it's still morning. I think it is. Yes, was the afternoon? Anyhow, it's a Monday. It's somewhere in the world. Yeah, it's a Monday afternoon, and we have a special show again for his Fayne Thompson, and we're here on our show Facebook. I'm Fayne Thompson Live and Unfiltered. We have a special guest today. The producer today is, of course, Mr. Dwight Fox as ever, but we have a special guest today, and he's none other than Mr. Damien Gomez, QC. He's a very good friend of ours. Also a very good friend of the show, and what we want to do is we want to actually lead the conversation today about something which is very special. We're going to pause for a minute. We're gonna pause for a minute. Right back. The volume is a bit high. You're going to give me the telephone contact, sir? Damien, is there an address you just want me to? Yes. www.bbl.com.
That takes you to the petition. Okay. And when we start posting the opinion on what you need to do.
Okay. Sure. Is anyone else interested in helping you out with it?
I've got John and...
John? Okay, good. Welcome back, Fayne Thompson. Today again is our special show that we're going to have today, focusing on Bahamas, power and light, focusing on those issues which impact you. You know, I told the story, and welcome, of course, Damien, to our show.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming to on short notice, because we contacted you last week and you kindly agreed. Well, was it Sunday or was it Saturday?
I think it was Saturday,
Sunday or Saturday, but you agreed to come and join us, and I appreciate that. We want to begin by focusing on something which has been burdening the Bahamian people, ladies and gentlemen, and it's all about this Bahamas power and light story. You know, it's been going on for years, but Damien, I don't know about you, but this is the first time in my life it has been this bad. You know, they talk about, comparing themselves to other governments. It doesn't really matter to me. Bahamians want to understand what's going to happen in the immediate future. What's happening today to fix this problem? We're supposed to live in a civilized country, and we can't keep the light on for 24 hours. 24 hours out of a 7-day period.
It hasn't been this bad, principally because of two things. One, this is the hottest summer on record, and this is the first time that you've actually seen daily occurrences where the power goes out in every single district of New Providence at some point during a 24-hour period. So that this has really ignited a lot of anger,
absolutely,
anxiety. It's affected people's health. It's
even just going through the red light is a danger.
Well, no,
there is no light. Kidney dialysis.
I go to the Central Detective Unit to go and interview a lady who was arrested. I get there. All of the prisoners are out. The power is off. Their generator had burnt up from overuse.
Wow.
So...
Wow, there you go.
So
that's a security issue.
National security
absolutely
is adversely impacted by this.
And so Damien, what I want to do is I really want to focus on something which you have now decided to make as a mission in the near to I guess long term, which is to petition the Bahamian people to perhaps take legal action out against this particular state of affairs. Now, something has happened recently, but Damien, set the stage as regards how you got to the point of making the decision to take this action, and tell us what that decision is.
First of all, I've been following social media, and the level of anger boils over into the posts that you see in text, and BPL has been featured in the basically commentary how inept, inefficient, lousy. People are using really strong language.
That's right.
In derogatory terms, voicing and expressing their frustration and anger. And I was just observing this. Then I came to work, I think it's about 10 days ago, and one of the secretaries was crying in the reception area. So I asked her what's going on. So she said, my father-in-law just died last night. He was 78. He died from a heat stroke during the...
He died from a heat stroke?
Yeah, during the blackout.
He died from a heat stroke?
Yeah.
So we're killing people?
Well, I don't know if that was related, but I just said to myself, it's time for us now to do something more than just... talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I then posted, it's time to get rid of being victims.
I saw that.
This sense of victimhood, you're helpless.
Yes.
It's not so. And I know it's not so because I helped in the drafting of the Electricity Bill 2015, which became enacted. And it provides very extensive provisions for consumer protection.
And Mr. Gomez is now referring to what piece of legislation?
This is the Electricity Act 2015. It came into force it was assented to on the 30th of December 2015. So it's been in force pretty much from the 1st of January 2016, though parts of it have been brought in staggered by government ministers.
So tell us what you, and in terms of the parts of it which are relevant for our purposes, what say you?
Well, what's important, people need to know that Section 9 of the Act actually sets out the statutory, you can share this. If you look at the first four, none of them have actually been complied with by BPL. Secure a safe, least cost, reliable, and environmentally sustainable supply of electricity within the Bahamas.
Absolutely.
Well, with the power going off every day for 6 weeks, that's not reliable.
That's right, projected for 4 months.
And they're saying that they're hoping to have it resolved by the end of the year, but there's no guarantee.
Absolutely.
So that actually adds to the unreliability. In terms of safety, whenever these power outages come to an end and they're restored, the restoration is normally accompanied by a surge. That can cause a fire.
Absolutely. I've lost 2 refrigerators.
That can burn up your appliances.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's a danger to
public safety.
To public safety,
That's right.
Both to property and to persons, because
That's right.
You could have you're on a shift schedule. You have kids. They're asleep while you're going to the hotel to work. You're not there.
That's right. A fire in the home.
Fire in the home.
That's right.
That's a danger to the kids. So it just appalls me that with this challenge facing the community, we have not been given a truthful explanation. Every time a politician has intervened and politics has been introduced to it, they've put a spin on what is actually factual, and they've lied. And this report that was published today in the
I really want to
Guardian,
do the report. Absolutely. That
it exposes the lies and actually focuses on truth. And people can actually see for themselves that this actually is almost criminal.
Okay, now what we want to do, Mr. Gomez, and in fact, Damien, is to first set the stage as regards what you're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about today is a legal action which Mr. Gomez is now an integral part of against BPL. Against BPL on the question as to the failings it has as to their failings in terms of providing a safe and consistent supply of electrical services. He is now an integral part of it. We're going to deal with the specifics of where you can find the information to join in and to assist. But now we're going to deal with something. I think the bombshell which dropped this morning on BPL is some information you're about to share with us right now. But it's there for everyone to see. But we know, Mr. Gomez, a lot of people don't like to read. So share with us.
Well, if you go to the Guardian, on the front page, they have report $33 million to replace Station C, and that is continued on page A3 of the newspaper. It's a very, very interesting and important article because it summarizes what is probably a much longer report. It appears that the two affected engines are not 60 years old.
As they said.
As was said. One was installed in 1997 and is the elder of the two machines, and that's 21 years. The other was installed in 2001 and therefore is 17 years. So that's the first point that needs to be understood.
Okay. And that's important because it gave the impression that the reason why there was this need to go and do this so-called new plant, etc., was because of the age of the so-called engines.
Yeah. Now,
just wear and tear, normal wear and tear.
But we now know that it couldn't be normal wear and tear because if these machines had a shelf life of 60 years, they're not even approaching 50%. In fact, if you add the two ages together, they barely make up 38.
That's right.
So,
fairly young machines.
They're fairly young machines.
Okay.
And that focuses really on what are we doing about maintenance at BPL? And maintenance is a function of management because someone in management ought to be supervising what is being done with the equipment. And these equipment, each equipment is exceptionally expensive. We're talking about $1 million machines. So maintenance is expected and ought to be properly conducted. Part of maintenance is housing the machines in an environment that is safe and which is capable of being easily maintained. Now, the facts of this were that while one of the machines was running,
this is how this whole series of events now was initiated. Oh, look, this is right.
One of the machines started to develop problems. There was a leak in one of the fuel valves. So rather than follow the instructions of the manufacturer, which was shut down the machine, fix the leak, and that would have taken, according to the manufacturer, between 20 and 30 minutes to do. In order to save the 30 minutes, they decided to keep the thing on and to try to fix it. So while that was going on, the fuel erupted through the valve and spilled over onto the heated machine.
And you know what that means.
And that ignited and caused the fire. They attempted to get the fire out. The embers from their attempts fell to the basement and into a reservoir canal of oil that then ignited.
That's another explosion.
And that was another explosion. Now, I don't know which court these people would expect to go to and say that's not gross negligence.
And this report was commissioned by the government.
It's not the government. They said there was no physical evidence of gross negligence. Well, that's absolutely startling. Because to keep open oil in a hazardous environment where fires might be expected, given that this is not the first fire that has occurred in our electrical history, are they really expecting us to fall for that?
Well, so tell us, you're the attorney, you're going to have to decide what the issues are. Bahamians are going to come to you and say, Mr. Gomez.
Well, we're gonna have a full memo of fact, which now we're able to do based
this is a big part of your case.
Report. Yeah.
I mean, I want people to understand that the report that Mr. Gomez is reading is actually his action.
That's the proof.
Is the proof of the action. Is the admission by the company
that they are wrong.
That they are wrong.
Now, I only needed that as a background.
Did you know this was coming out on Monday?
I didn't know it was coming out now. Okay. I knew that it would have to come out at some point.
Okay.
And I knew that even if it was not published, in discovery I would be entitled to it.
Absolutely.
So I'm not at all surprised by its existence, nor am I surprised that it says what it says.
Do you think this is an attempt to forestall some of the actions by perhaps yourself?
Well, I don't know how that can stop it.
No, I totally agree with you, but
no,
I just put the question to you.
Let me put it to you this way: every person who contracts with BPL has a contract which has the backing of a statute, which entitles them to a reliable supply of electricity. It didn't matter that the fire was caused in the way that it was caused. The contract has been breached. It's strict liability.
Explain that. A lot of people don't understand what that means, but you and I understand that.
When you are in a contract and the contract provides for you to do X, if you have not done X, you are in breach of the contract. That's whatever the reason for your failure to do X. They have failed to do X. They've failed to provide us with a reliable supply. And they are in fact threatening us with a continuation for at least another 4 months.
I find this to be amazing. I'm just wondering who's advising this company, and why would they be so bold and so deep and so bold as to say, well, in your face, this is happening whether you like it or not, and we're going to put you through it.
Well, they're saying that, and they're also saying there's nothing you can do about it, which is not true. Now, what I found that is interesting is that when you look at the provisions which deal with consumer protection and IRCA
under the Act,
under the Act, that section 40 and following. But see, we were very careful. You see, the old Act didn't do this. We have provided an environment.
This is like a charter of rights
for consumers.
Ladies, please, I mean...
the Act actually envisions...
Section 40 of the Act, to which Mr. Gomez refers, of the official Act, refers to what amounts to a charter of rights for consumers.
For consumers. So
not many of us know that.
But this is the point that I'm making. And that's why I have gone public.
I see.
Because I'm saying to the public, you do have recourse.
Let the public hear it again. But let me say, you do have recourse.
You do have recourse, and
under the legislation.
Under the legislation.
So, for example, for the for the destroyed refrigerator,
you can go.
Yes.
And you can make your complaint. Under the Act, they were supposed to have within 90 days provided IRCA with a copy of their alternative dispute resolution proposal, which was intended to fast track
and to avoid the need for legal actions.
Well, it's still a legal action, but it is in a fast track, cost effective manner, so that you're able to actually empower the public in a way that they are not normally empowered. Because when you go to the Supreme Court, and you're in a queue with
Tedious,
2,000, 3,000 other litigants.
Yes.
This is not conducive to consumer protection.
Absolutely.
So the Act actually spells it out.
ADR.
Well, you can see now. Read.
Alternative. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're referring to something which is very interesting. In 5 minutes, we'll take a break. But we're referring to something which is important for you guys to bear attention to. Mr. Gomez has now informed us, and he is the author of this act, so he should know that there is a provision which allows for ADR, or alternative dispute resolution. Now, I think there are two other mechanisms which perhaps we will discuss. One turns, and I think, in a magistrate's court, depending upon the amount of your claim, of course, and of course the Supreme Court, to which Mr. Gomez has referred, something to which he has referred. But ADR is important because it allows you to, under the Act, to take certain course of action. This is going to be interesting. In fact, this is going to be interesting as he goes along to explain. But Damien, real quick, ADR is a parallel mechanism to going, let's say, to the magistrate court and to the Supreme Court.
And to the Supreme Court, yes. It's parallel to it, and
provided for under the Act.
It's provided for under the Act. In fact, subsection 10 of section 40. Well, it's not that one. No, it's subsection 16. An ADR scheme established under this section shall not prejudice rights existing under any other provision of this Act or any other law.
Wow. So any regulations needed to bring that into force? Or
No.
So it actually allows for ADR. What is ADR?
ADR.
What is ADR? And do you have to be a lawyer to be part of this process of ADR?
No.
Bingo. So in terms of, you have a dispute, you will say to what? BPL, you choose an arbitrator, we have our mediators, you owe me $1 million because you caused me harm.
The whole point of this is that they would submit their plan to IRCA, which has now happened, and IRCA has now invited public comments on their plan, as they are required to do under the Act. And once that consultation has been completed, the ADR scheme will then be adopted under the aegis of IRCA.
How does it work?
Well, IRCA says, I approve of it.
You approve of the ADR scheme.
And that then becomes the statutory scheme that you settle these disputes.
So how does that look? An arbitrator, 2 mediators, or 3? How does that look?
Well, I don't know what they've yet proposed. I will have more information on that during the course of this week.
What do you propose to do? I want you to keep that thought. Keep that answer. We have Damien, and we're getting legal advice that you don't have to pay for by the author of a very important piece of legislation, the Act which actually polices and protects you. It has a scheme of rights which I refer to as a Charter of Rights. That's not Mr. Gomez, that's me. And he also now informs me, that informs us about the procedure which is allowed by way of ADR. This is important. This is very important because it gives you options as to how you deal with BPL. Because see, Mr. Jesus should have been fired. Mr. Jesus should have been fired. It's still on the job. They're now telling you 4 months to settle this nonsense. Obscene. This is an abuse of you and your rights. So stay tuned. We're going to be back in a couple of minutes. We'll take a break now, Mr. Producer. We'll take a break for a couple of minutes and we'll be right back. Damien Gomez has joined us today. And class action lawsuit. It's a bit loud. Damien, this is good. So what we'll do is we'll just continue.
The whole point, this ADR scheme is critical to IRCA's regulatory function.
And it's operational. It's not operational yet.
They're now putting it in place. But the point that I'm making is IRCA, this should have been done ages ago. It's now being done. But IRCA could revoke their license. I mean, the problem is that it's a monopoly, but it is possible for IRCA to say you have breached your license.
What other punitive measures could they employ?
Well, they can fine them, they can cause them to reduce or give you credit.
Yes,
so
well, Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here with Mr. Gomez, and this conversation is clearly going to be a detailed one. But let me say this: if we, for some reason, find that we have to come back, we're going to beg Mr. Gomez to give us a bit more time. This is very important. Now, in the break, we continue talking about the role that IRCA plays in all of this, ADR, what that is, what this lawsuit may mean, etc., etc., etc. Before we move to the nuts and bolts of what you think you may do, Mr. Gomez, of course, this may be something you want to keep close to your chest. Tell us a bit more then about aspects of the legislation which seeks to protect behemoths. For example, can the license of this particular Bahamas Power Light be revoked? Can they be fined? And are there any other mechanisms by which IRCA can police them?
Well, IRCA is the regulator under the Act, and as regulator can revoke licenses, of course. So the answer to that question is yes, though the practicality of it would be, well, how are you going to do that when they're a monopoly?
Yes.
So that would be something that IRCA would consider and likely say, well, we are not going to do that until such time as the market opens. IRCA can cause them to credit consumers generally with
something they've done with BTC before.
They've done that with BTC and with cable. One of the problems facing IRCA from my discussions informally with them has been that people don't actually complain. So Bahamians have this bad habit of moaning amongst ourselves. We'll complain on WhatsApp, we'll complain on Facebook, but we're not doing anything to engage the statutory remedies that are available to us in the utility sector. And that is something that needs to change if we are going to affect any improvement in the services that we receive from the utilities companies. Thank God nobody's as bad as BPL is right now. But we could be far better if the system was properly engaged by consumers. And IRCA then would then have a benchmark by which they can say to the different utility companies, look, you're falling down. We're being inundated with complaints. Why is there such disservice that's being meted out to consumers? So it's a wider question. And if you look at the utility sector, you have on the one hand the monopoly of BPL, which is supposed to sit on top of a oligopoly, I suppose, because you're going to have a number of other licensees who can supply power to BPL under the aegis of a license issued by IRCA. But for right now, BPL has that monopoly, so it's in a different situation to BTC and Alive. It's in a different situation to Cable Bahamas, which is in competition with BTC in the provision of television services, and also the government, because ZNS is separate. But if we're not interested in defending the rights that we have as consumers, what's the point in having those rights?
That leads me then I guess to the next point. Now you've mentioned the license. It's on the likelihood of it being revoked.
Well,
I get that.
It would be shocking.
It's a monopoly. Chances are it won't happen. That's not a good policy option. Fines being imposed. What about consumers on credit getting their money back, losing that refrigerator?
But that's the point. All of that IRCA
can do. IRCA can direct a certain course of action.
Yeah. And if they breach it, then they're in violation of their license.
Okay. Now let's talk about the lawyer, Damian Gomez. What do you propose to do? Now, first, before we get to this, in more detail, let me just make it very clear. Let me repeat this: www.bpllawsuit.com. That's where the petition is.
That's where the petition.
Tell us a bit about that, Mr. Gomez.
What we've done, what we want to do first of all, is identify who wants to participate in this action. And there are several different types of consumer. There's the consumer who has contracted with BPO. So that consumer has a contract. There are other persons who live in a premises that has a contract, but they're not party to that contract, and because of the privity of contract rule, they can't sue under the contract.
That's correct.
Now, they may suffer property damage, they may suffer personal injury or aggravated personal injury that they were recuperating from, and in addition to that, they then have this anxiety. There's one lady who emailed me. She said that she has a 2-year-old son who suffers from eczema, and she's horrified at night because he's crying, and it's really uncomfortable. There are instances like that. Now, if she does not have a contract, but she lives with someone who does, BPL must have contemplated of their existence, because people don't live in houses in general by themselves, and you can tell from the usage whether they have a family or not. You know, a person who lives alone isn't going to use as much power as a family would. You don't run the washing machine as often. You don't run the dryer as often. The fridge might be a smaller fridge. There are all those
things,
things to take into consideration. So the persons who don't have a contract with BPO are still entitled to compensation in the event that they have suffered from a tort. Now, the tort is a violation of the Electricity Act.
The tort, he just used a very legal term, ladies and gentlemen. The tort simply means the wrong which they've committed.
And in addition to that, there's negligence.
Yes. And negligence means...
This is a classic Donahue and Stevenson position.
Yes.
The question, who is my neighbor?
Yes.
And your neighbor is the person who you ought to have considered.
Absolutely.
When you were doing whatever you were doing.
Absolutely.
And how you would affect them.
Absolutely. So on that basis, essentially, you feel you have a good prospects. And what's been the reaction, the response so far, if you want to say?
We posted the website 2 days ago, and we were already past 240 signatures.
I think it was 239 this morning. Sometime.
So I watch it periodically during the day. It's going at a good clip, and
are people serious about taking this action out and being part of this class action, or are they saying you have individual concerns? And of course, you have different kinds of consumers. You have the middle, you have businesses, you have individuals. Well, you have a company.
We would expect, as we roll out the information on the website and share it with the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations that deal with businesses and with the trade unions, that the word will be spread. There'll be more sensitivity to the rights that consumers have under the Act. And this will probably be a much larger number than it now is.
What do you want to achieve?
Well, ultimately, I want BPL to be more responsible and responsive to the electricity needs of the country.
In their present state, can they? Can they be?
Well, you can't be if you're lying to me. You know, when a person accepts an appointment to the board of BPL, we're not expecting you to be performing miracles. But we do expect you to be honest and to say truthfully what the challenges are.
Absolutely.
And part of management is managing public relations. But you can't insult half of the country, make enemies of them almost, and then expect them to be there patting you over the back and offering a helping hand when you need them to do so. That really is the problem in this instance.
And from a tactical point of view, have you decided specifically which of the many options you have, or it could be all?
I at the time when I published the call to arms, so to speak, I was minded to use the Supreme Court for it. Then I saw the invitation for comments, the public consultation process in relation to the ADR.
They did this because of you.
And
the invitation to the ADR, that was designed to forestall the inevitability of this.
No, but it has caused me to consider the advantages of ADR. Since it was not there, I didn't consider it. But now that it is there, I am considering it. And I will give the petitioners the option and explain to them the difference between the two systems.
It's becoming an area which seems to obviate in many cases expensive litigation, time-consuming litigation.
It's also quick. You can go from start to finish within months. And if, for instance, you have a report like this, that half the trial is gone. The only thing that we're looking at now is, well, how much do you owe this particular person?
It'll be a question of damages.
Yeah.
On what the figure would be.
See, what I think other lawyers were looking at when they thought that you couldn't sue was the provision of the old Electricity Act, which is now repealed, Section 48, which stated that BEC would only be liable for a breach in the electricity supply if that breach was occasioned by something under their control. But even under Section 48, this report would have exploded that. They would not have been able to hide behind the section. Up until this report,
there's no act of God in this at all. There's no act of God.
The temptation.
The report actually makes it very clear.
Most people would have thought this must have been an act of God.
Yeah.
I mean, no one in their sanest of moment would have believed that they would keep oil open underneath equipment that were a fire hazard.
Okay.
So
we are having a Mr. Gomez. We only have a few minutes left, but what we want to do is we want to try best to really cap up to put together what we've been talking about. The report today in the Guardian, we recommend that persons read it, try to digest it, so to understand.
Well, I'm going to post it online anyway.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
What we will do is we will make sure that everyone who has expressed an interest in joining the lawsuit has access to information which we have. I don't mind if you want to choose another lawyer, that's up to you. But what I want you to do is to be informed and to make informed decisions.
Now, in terms of getting the message out, we would like to work with you and other lawyers to ensure.
Right now,
we like to do our best to assist you.
Right now, it's John Boswick, Anton Thompson, myself. We've got some lay people. I don't know if they want me to call their names because one or two of them work for government. But we've got a team that's capable of managing the IT aspect of it, because a lot of this is going to require that we use electronic communications. It actually cuts down the amount of time that you take to do things, and that's the reason. But that's the reason why we have a team, and the more numbers that we have in the team, the better for us.
Well, I'd like to help. In fact, I'm really keen I'm really, really keen to see how far this goes, and I want to support you with it because I really think it's fantastic. You know, Bahamians must get to the point, Damien, you've said it, you must stop acting like victims and make these people more accountable. There's no way in any civilized country that we should have to wait for 4 months to get our electrical supply reorganized, and it's just ridiculous. And to have to go through all of this.
Some people have asked the question, are we suing ourselves? Well, if you burn down my house,
absolutely,
am I supposed to take the position that I can't sue a government-owned entity because I may be called to pay taxes that will pay a portion of whatever my damages are resulting from a fire? That is a ridiculous assertion.
It is.
And what amazes me is that we are the leading jurisdiction in the Caribbean when it comes to constitutional compensation claims. We have been that. We've been a trailblazer in the region for decades. No one has ever asked the victim of a police beating, well, why are you suing yourself?
Yes.
So what is this sudden concern about suing the collective when the collective has done some individual wrong for which the individual is entitled to be compensated? You know, there's a guy, Jamal Clear. Case went up to the Privy Council, coming back down to the Supreme Court to go back over the issue of damages. He was actually crippled by the police. Now, are you saying a person like him shouldn't sue because he's suing us and he may have to pay taxes that will contribute to
There is a contingency fund in any event, isn't there? Which anticipates these yearly events because they seem to happen so often nowadays.
The curious thing about it is this report in the newspapers shows that J.S. Johnson are the insurers for BPL.
Ah, interesting.
So that this is not a case where BPL is uninsured.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And it would be remarkable if, given what the report says, they're not able to defray their liabilities arising from this accident by simply claiming on their insurance.
Damien Gomez has been with us. We're going to begin our wrapping up. We would like to thank you, Mr. Gomez. We're going to have you back, and I'm going to actually let you know that when you do have this meeting, please allow people like fellas like me, humble fellas like me, to come and join you. I'm very keen to see how this really unfolds. I just want to read a few words. It was an article which I wrote a few days ago, which got me into some difficulty with a very good friend of mine, but I wrote a feeling that it was necessary. And I said at one point, finally, I must holler at the top of my lungs that Bahamians should sue the pants of BPL for egregious and continuing breaches of contract and the provision of services. I think Damien Gomez is leading an initiative to correct the imbalance between the state and the individual. The state must appreciate that it just cannot willy-nilly say, suck teeth, we'll take until December to get this thing fixed. It ain't our fault, we can lie to you, etc., etc. This is accountability as it should be. Mr. Gomez, any final thoughts?
Well, I'm asking the public to be responsible citizens. You have a statutory right. The statute itself sets up a system by which that right may be enforced and enjoyed by you. Avail yourself of it and stop questioning whether you should do so. Parliament expects you to do so because Parliament has not changed this act, and this administration has been in power since 2017. So this is something that the government of the Bahamas would expect. The mechanisms of IRCA and of the utility legislation that applies in the Bahamas requires you to be active as consumers. Stop complaining on WhatsApp because that does not affect any action on the part of IRCA. You have to go to IRCA and activate your complaints if you want to have an efficient internet service, if you want to have an efficient cable service, if you want telephone services to be as they should be. If you want to live in a country that has the technology and uses the technology that is available in the United States and Canada and Europe and China and other places that are considered developed countries, you have to play your part. And by not playing your part, you are contributing to the melee that we are actually involved in. And standards need to be kept.
The BPL lawsuit. Attorney Damien Gomez, QC, we thank you again for coming out. We also like to thank our producer, and let me also say for those of you for the comments that you've shared with us. We hope this show has been informative yet again. We'll be back on Wednesday with another show, another edition of our show, and we hope that you have an interest in it. Remember now, these ought to be supported by you. You will not hear this type of stuff in the mainstream media. One or two talk shows may start it. That is what we commit ourselves to. You will hear what you should hear. Sue BPL, sue their pants off. And thank you very much, Mr. Gomez, for joining us today.
Thank you. That was good.
Blah, 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 blah.